Today I'm joined by Abigail Kemp, the author behind the brand new Corrie book that's recently been released to tie in with the show's upcoming anniversary, 60 Years of Coronation Street. Abigail, lovely to have you on the podcast today.
Oh, it's lovely to be here, Michael.
So I can imagine that your life must have been living and breathing Corrie for quite a while now. You must really love the show. Can you start by telling me about your history with Corrie, both as a fan and someone who's worked behind the scenes?
Yeah, sure. So I've watched Corrie since I was a teenager and always loved it. Like a lot of people, you sort of dip in a little bit in and out as you're growing up and go off to work elsewhere in uni and family comes along. But it's always been there, and I've always kept up with the storylines. I've been a big fan, and I've had I have a couple of friends who've worked on the show for a very long time. And my connection with working there briefly was through some friends, but they needed somebody to fill in the publicity office to cover for a secondment, and I'd just left the Manchester Evening News after about 15, 16 years, and was doing different projects, and obviously having that sort of connection to the press, it was ideal. Absolutely loved it. It was a short-term thing, but it led on to a couple of other Corrie-related projects. One of which was when they restarted the tours at Trafford Wharf, and they needed someone basically to put a script together for the tour guides. So that happened, and then that led on to a couple of things in the last year or so, one of which, the biggest thing, was being approached to have a go at doing the book, and that's how that happened.
That's brilliant. Going back to the tour, because we have got so much that we can talk about the book in a minute. What was that like? How did you go about writing the script for that?
Oh, well, I'm not a script writer. You know, my background is journalism. Yeah. So it was a tiny bit challenging, really, because although I'd been on the Coronation Street tour, the old one at Quay Street years ago, everything was new, and you had to write it for the guides, who are generally quite entertaining, and they really want the people on the tour, the guests on the tour who've paid, to have a great time, but also to drip in these bits of information that perhaps, little gems that perhaps the fans that come on the tour don't know, so they really get something for their money. So it's writing for somebody else to talk about, but not act. So it was really interesting, and it's also I had a specific length. It had to be a certain time, and it was really enjoyable to do. And actually, it was great practice for the book, because I worked with the researchers just to get the facts and figures, and that really helped, having that basis of that, those facts and figures and little bits of info that sort of littered through the book, I suppose. Yeah.
So when did the work on the book first start then?
Oh, it was nearly 2 years ago. Oh. So it's easier to think backwards, actually. My deadline was last December. Right. With some time after that for amends and a few ads.
Yeah, because I was going to ask about, because I wondered when it stops, because I've been reading through it, and some of the even fairly recent stories are still mentioned in there. So is that like the amends that you stuck in at the last minute?
Yeah. We had a bit of contingency sort of built in, because if you're a fan and you're buying a book and the storylines, or there's nothing from, with our deadline being virtually a year before the actual anniversary, we really had to think carefully about how we dealt with 2020. Yeah. And we knew that we had up until about March, and of course March was when everything changed and everything stopped. So it was, we couldn't have done much more storyline work past that, because had we been able to, we wouldn't have wanted to do any spoilers, obviously, about the 60th. But everything's changed, and all the plans could have changed, and it came to a kind of, it was a good time between December and March to complete there, and I spoke to Ian MacLeod, the producer, and he was really helpful. But his hands were tied by COVID at that point, but really helpful on what they hoped to do in this 60th year. So in answer to your original question, let me just think. I worked on it probably for the 9 months before. Yeah, so all of last year, but there was discussions the year before.
I see. So what did it mean to you to have been chosen to lead this project?
Oh, it was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Literally, it's the weight of the history of this show, and wanting to do it justice, and wanting to really, just really wanting to do it justice. That's probably the best way to put it, because it's so brilliant and so important in so many ways to so many people, especially coming from Manchester. It's I know people love it all over the world. Absolutely, Australia, Canada. I know some people in Canada who are just the biggest fans you'd ever meet. But when it's round the corner, it's just the way of doing it properly was scary.
I bet. So what was the original brief then? What were you asked to write?
So the original brief was, I had a length. I knew how many pages it was going to be. So I was brought in once the publishers and ITV Publishing had agreed their sort of deal, basically. And so my brief was to cover not only the storylines, but to give it some real sort of added value. And that was kind of left up to me, but I really wanted to, look at behind the scenes, because, as you probably know, there's a celebratory book every 10 years or so. So there was the 50th book, which was excellent. There was a 40th one, a 35th, actually, I think, and a number of others as well. So the storylines, they've, up until the last 10 years, they've all been covered. So we needed something else. So that was my main brief, was to bring something else to it, some added value, and some sort of put its start in the sort of the setting of, do you know what I mean? To sort of take people to what life was like before Coronation Street, really, a little bit, and really set that scene. Also to secure the interviews with those key actors, of which, Bill Roach and Barbara Knox, and they're just, amazing. And it was great to speak to them.
Yeah. So would you say then that this is a book for the hardcore Corrie viewer or a more casual fan?
Well, that was another challenge, really, because it has several audiences, as the show does, I suppose. There is the real super hardcore fans. There's the irregular fans. They span all ages, and there's a lot of younger fans of the show as well. So it's difficult to just go 100% in one direction. To appeal to the younger fans would have been, I suppose, a little bit alienating. I kind of just thought about people that what I wanted to, find out about, which helps sort of ask the questions as well.
I think you've got quite a good balance, really, because like you said, the older anniversary books, the 50th, 40th, the 35th, probably a lot of the hardcore fans have already got. I mean, I've got them on my shelf, but I still found so much interesting, fascinating new information that I didn't know before. I mean, I adored the behind the scenes stuff in the first section of the book. Oh, good. Yeah, but what's your? Have you got like a favourite section of it? A bit that you're particularly proud of how it turned out?
Yes, I do like the behind the scenes section because that hasn't been explored recently. No. So much, and those that the amount of talent and skill, not only in front of the cameras but behind the cameras, is utterly amazing. The way just the sheer amount of content that of programming that they turn out every year, and it's just an amazing team. It really is. So I was glad to be able to do that, and everyone was so helpful as well. And the other highlight for me really was speaking to Bill Roach, and spending a couple of hours, just chatting to him, and it's just fantastic. And that was a real privilege, because he tells you about the first day 60 years ago, the first day, the dry runs, the first day on set, and to hear that from someone that we've all grown up with, it was great.
That must have been fascinating. And I know what you mean about the behind the scenes stuff. You said that a book hadn't been recently brought out that talks about how that works. And I think you're right, because and it's so different now as well, isn't it? I can't remember when the last behind the scenes Corrie book came out, but it must be like another world, to the production wise, to how it was even 10 years ago, never mind 20, 30, 40, 50.
Well, that's absolutely right, and a lot of the people behind the scenes, a good number of them have been there for a long time, and they say the biggest change is the number of episodes, and that correspondingly the amount of work that goes into them, and then there's things like the digitization of the editing, that kind of thing. So it is quite new, really. I'm not technical, I don't really know that side of things, but I just found it fascinating as well, talking to them. So
Were they all really happy to talk to you? Because I mean, the behind the scenes people, I guess they don't have to talk to the press or get interviewed or anything very often.
No, yeah, you're right. And no, they were just absolutely delightful and made so much time for me and were so helpful, just with follow-up questions and double-checking things. Just a joy to speak to, really, all of them. Yeah. They're just great. And that's why people say, the actors and the behind the scenes people, that it's like a big family, and it is. It's just such a happy place to visit. Everyone's they really are. They're just so friendly and helpful. It was a pleasure.
Did you find anything that was like utterly surprising to you? Was there anything that made you go, "Wow, I never knew that before," as part of your research, either behind the scenes or about the the show, the episodes itself?
Yeah, quite a number of things. But one of the really interesting things to be able to do was to go through not only Tony Warren's personal archive, which was held at I think it still is, I'm not sure, at Central Library in Manchester, and you have to have special permission to be able to browse through that lot. That was amazing. But also the Corrie archive. And I spent a good few nights going through Lever Arch files of all the original memos written by the original producers and directors. They have been touched on before in other publications, but not all of them.
Yeah, no, I reckon, because you kind of, they're dotted around some of the pages, aren't they? It reminded me a little bit of the, do you know the Coronation Street Treasures book? Which has it was a little bit like that, but for behind the scenes stuff. I loved it. It's fascinating reading some of the memos there. So what is the archive? Do they just like have a special room in the Coronation Street offices that's you can go in and it's just like a cornucopia of Coronation Street trivia almost and bits and bobs?
It's kind of. Well, there's stuff in different places, I suppose. I was just. They were kind enough to just show me these boxes of information, basically, and let me have a go through them. And then another really handy thing that happened was that quite a few artefacts had been on. When I say Coronation Street the tour, I mean the one that had gone round to different venues. So it was like an installation, if you like. And in that were things like Pat Phoenix or Elsie Tanner's handbag, and a set of Hilda's rollers, and I think it was Vera's earrings, but they were the real things, and they came back in a great big case just at the right time, and we were able to go through those and photograph those as well. So that was just to touch Elsie Tanner's handbag and then see a scene that it was in. It's just...
Oh, I'm sure. And did you spend a long time watching episodes as well from years gone by?
I did, but I had to stop myself, because I'd start watching one and then lead on to another and then go, oh, I remember that. And I worked out that if I had... Because I really only had a certain amount of time to plan and complete the book. Yeah. And I worked out that if I was to watch every episode, I would have been watching non-stop for 6 months. So
I didn't quite have the time for that.
Because I had other jobs to do, and I've got, kids and animals, and it was just that, yeah. But I did. I loved it. And I loved going back to when I really sort of remember it was when Jenny came in the first time as a foster daughter for Rita.
Yeah, mid-80s.
And myself and Jenny, Sally Ann, a similar age. And when we chatted about it, we were saying, it was really, really identified with her at the time. Yeah. So yeah.
Did you find it helped you to understand the characters and the episodes and the themes better watching the episodes themselves? Because I mean, a lot of the information's already out there. I mean, Corriepedia is fantastic, and I know you work with them. But do you think it really helped to be able to see the episodes to get a feel for them?
Oh gosh, yes, YouTube is amazing. I don't know how people would have tackled something like this a few years ago without having that sort of resource. And yeah, I mean, sometimes there's just so much out there that you have to stop yourself. Otherwise, you sit down one evening and 2 o'clock in the morning you're still watching old Corries.
Yeah. I mean, I was really chuffed to see the guys from Corriepedia get a credit as special acknowledged. How did you work with them?
Well, they get to they're in contact with the researchers at Corrie, and they go and they visit and sometimes. And I spoke to them directly when myself and John met up and had a chat, and I said, look, I've got the timeline to do of the stories, and I need your help. And they were just amazing. They were proofreading bits and pieces and correcting things, and I just literally, that section could not have happened without them.
Yeah, they know their stuff, don't they?
Gosh, they do, and they, together with the researchers. I mean, any mistakes, I have to say, any mistakes in it are mine. They will be, but those guys and the researchers are just absolutely phenomenal knowledge.
Yeah. So so you finished off your research, you got writing. What about the design of the book? Did you have any input in that? For example, the timeline pages. Did you get to choose this is how you wanted it to be, or did you just have the words?
No, I didn't. I was, I suppose I was a sort of a writer for hire. I was responsible for the content. I was given a brief, and I had to supply that content. Send to get the files over by a certain date. So I had a little bit of liaison with the art director from the publishers, but I didn't really have too much of a say. I knew how it was going to look, but it wasn't really any of my ideas or choice. Yeah. But I'm very happy with it.
Oh, it looks brilliant, doesn't it? It's such a classy design. And I'll tell you what I really like, on the sections with the different houses where you've got the cartoonists do the the cartoons of the houses. That's brilliant.
They look good, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really pleased with it.
Yeah, it's awesome. So just before we finish then, I'd like to know a little bit about, you say you started watching Corrie kind of Jenny Bradley first period. Have you got any favourite characters or stories or anything over the years?
Actually, it was a little bit before that. I loved Rita's, anything to do with Rita at that time. Len and Rita was just, I don't know why. And when their foster kids started coming in, and then the stories that emanated from that, I think that I just started, as a young teenager, being really sort of aware then and really, really getting into it. So that period, I think the later ones, I think that the work around when Kylie killed Callum, which is one of the key scenes, obviously, from the last few years. Just utterly amazing TV.
Yeah.
And then just the comedic moments through the years, which I know people say, but looking at them again, and the writing is just stunning. It's just hilarious, and they're still doing that now. So I'd say that, you know, with the old Percy and Phyllis, that was always hilarious.
Yeah.
Going on to every single time, ever since he started, David Neilson as Roy, just utter delight to watch him on the screen. And now Evelyn.
She's brilliant, isn't she?
Blanche, obviously. You know, Evelyn is the new Blanche, isn't she? But just great writing and great women.
Yeah. Did you kind of make any new favourites from watching any of the really, really old episodes? Because I was watching some of them earlier this year, and I loved the likes of Minnie Caldwell, the old Hilda Ogden and Stan stuff, which I hadn't ever seen much before. Did you get that as well?
Right. Yeah, I do remember a lot of Stan and Hilda when I was watching when I was younger, but I'd only sort of, you know, I'd never really watched too many of the episodes, right from the sort of the Ina and Elsie battling in the street and that kind of thing, right from the start, and to watch those properly was you know, it just really brings it home to you how great they were. And because I was looking at sort of Pat Phoenix, all knowing her entire life and how famous she became, and you know, marrying Tony Booth, and I remember when she passed away and what a big star she was. But I hadn't really gone back, and I'd seen clips, but I hadn't really gone back and watched episode after episode after episode, and really knew her storylines. And you know, when she married, you know, her lost love came back again in America, and everything around that. So that I can see, you know, why in 1960 and up to the early 80s that she became such a star.
Yeah. And Corrie's got such a rich history, isn't it? And I think it's books like yours that help people to see that it's not just it's not always been how it is now, but it's, you know, it just stretches back, and it's got a wealth of unexplored characters. And I think Corrie fans now who don't know much about the early days should have a look at your book, watch some of the old episodes, and just immerse themselves in vintage Corrie, because it's great.
It is the writing and some of the issues that they tackled back then as well. You know, really, it's quite harsh stuff, and did it excellently. And they were doing it for the first time. You know, they really did. They led the way all the way through the 60s and onwards, and still today. And that's, you know, and it's still just as obviously as good. But also it's interesting that as Bill Roach was saying as well, about you have to change. And sometimes people say, oh, I don't watch Corrie anymore, it's not as good as it used to be. And they do watch it because they know what's going on. But you have to change, and you have to bring, as he said, I think Helen Worth said it as well, you have to bring the younger viewers with you, which I think they're doing admirably, I hope.
Yeah. Well done again, Abby, for your book. I've not read it all, I have to say, because it's a bit of a weighty tome, but I'm looking forward to getting through it over the next few weeks and months, and I hope that it does really well for you. Honestly, Coronation Street fans should be all getting this in their Christmas stocking, if not earlier this year.
Oh, I hope so. I hope everyone enjoys it, and I hope you do too.
Yeah, thank you. Have you got any other Corrie-related projects lined up in the future?
No, not really. No, nothing. Those things. It's funny, things just sort of turn up. Actually, you just don't know what's around the corner. So,
well, we'll watch this.
I'm just going to I'm just going to have a rest and enjoy watching it.
Yeah, you must be a bit Corried out at the moment after all that. Just watch it like a normal viewer, and that's it.
No, but it's not dented it at all for me. I'm still there watching 6 times a week.
Fantastic. Okay, lovely speaking to you, Abby. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.